साजिशों और झूठी स्कीमें बनाने में चाहे जितने भी उनके ज़हन थे,
however shrewd and cunning they might be in forming schemes and false intrigues,
तदबीरों को मुकाबला नहीं कर सकते.
they cannot compete with the design of Almighty Allah.
मोमिनों को भी ये कहकर तसल्ली फरमाई है.
Allah has reassured the believers also, saying that this is a fundamental decree and also a fundamental act of the Lord, that وَلَا يُحِيقُ الْمَكْرُ السَّيِّئُ إِلَّا بِأَهْلِهِ, that but the evil plot encompasses none but the authors themselves. In other words, only they themselves become encompassed by it. Indeed, according to God's other law, phases and periods of sacrifices run. However, the final victory is always attained by the people of God. It is always won by the Prophet and his community. And his enemy always meet their punishment. This is the Sunnatullah, the way of Allah, and the way of Allah never ever changes. This utterly unchangeable way of Allah is such that demonstrated the sorry end of the enemies in the past also, and today as well is displaying their bad end, and will always continue to show their bad end. The major illustration of this Allah the Almighty will demonstrate in His own time, as is mentioned in the second verse of the Quran that I recited. However, for the sake of strengthening the faith of believers, at various times Allah the Almighty displays smaller examples of how the intrigues, efforts and plots against the truth come to nothing, and this is what Allah the Almighty demonstrates. Recently, in Indonesia, the barbaric act perpetrated by the followers of the so-called mullahs, in which the mullahs were involved themselves. So after this, the mullah became so much emboldened and more confident that the mullahs of other vicinities also said that why should we be left behind? Hence they announced that on the 1st of March they would hold a large procession in Jakarta, and that hundreds of thousands of people would take part in this. Moreover, they made considerable preparations for this procession, and the demand out of this was, or they said that our demand in this procession will be, that Ahmadi should be banned outright. They should refrain from calling themselves Muslims. Or if they want to call themselves Muslims, then they should join us. Otherwise, they said that we will maintain this procession and protest to that point when either the government decides in our favor, or until we do not remove the president of the nation from his office and from his presidential palace. And in terms of the sheer size of the plan that was being concocted, Jamaat Ahmadiyya Indonesia were concerned, and they thought that this opposition protest being carried out, and their plan for a procession and the extremist nature coming out of it, that would be quite significant. However, Allah the Almighty provided such means that only a small and insignificant procession took place and was carried out, and even that finished well before the scheduled time. A few days before this procession, an intrigue Allah the Almighty had put it into the hearts of the government-supported Maulvis that we should hold a jalsa or a convention. So subsequently a very large jalsa was held, in which the president of the country himself attended.
तदबीरें थीं।
And this is the way how Allah the Almighty